Welcome everybody to Commerce Ki Pathshala. I am CA Rakhshan and today we are going to discuss certain concepts of audit. So let's get started. So before starting with today's topic of discussion, here are some food for thoughts. We know that a business organization are a separate legal entity which is distinct from its owners. Take company form of an organization for example. We know that a company form of an organization has a distinct identity from its members and shareholders. There is a divorce between ownership and management, where the owners invests money into the business, management uses that funds to conduct the business and in turn generate profit. They say an audit is one of the ways through which the owners or the shareholders keeps a check on the management about utilization of the funds, efficiency in conducting the business, and trueness and fairness of the financial accounts. Having said that, a question arises, are all kind of business organizations required to get their accounts and books audited? Well, definitely not. Audit is not legally obligatory for all kinds of organizations. Having said that, we understand that there are two broad categories in which an audit can be divided. Category A, audit under law or the mandatory audit. Category B, audit performed voluntarily. We take a step forward in understanding these two broad categories. Audit under law. Various organizations are required to get their financials mandatorily audited by an independent auditor as per the law of the land. Take company form of an organization for example. Companies are governed by the Companies Act which mandates audit on them. Likewise, the government has made audit of banking companies, financial institutions and other statutory body compulsory. Audit performed voluntarily. So excluding the organizations which are covered in category A, many other organizations, as a matter of prudence, to keep a check on the internal control, their cash flows, efficiency with which the business is being conducted, that gets their accounts audited. Also, certain other audit which are required for business facilitations are covered in this category. For instance, banks might require an audited financial statements of any entity for the purpose of advancing them any loan or investment. So having understood the two broad categories, let us study further to understand what are various other types of audit. We have to bear in mind that types of audit are generally classified based on the data, the document and the processes checked during those audits. So what are the types of audits? We have external or statutory audit, internal and special audit, forensic audit, tax audit, system or information technology audit, compliance, bank, government, electricity, environmental, value for money, etc. This is not a comprehensive list but illustrative examples. While I will be happy to solve any kind of doubts on the other categories of audit, today we are going to discuss the following four types. That is the statutory or external audit, internal audit, tax audit and forensic audit. Statutory and external audit. To understand this type of audit, let us go back and revise our definition of an audit. The definition goes like, an audit is an independent examination of financial statements of any entity, whether profit oriented or not, irrespective of its size and legal form, etc., etc., etc. Now this definition in specific highlights and it talks of the statutory audit. So external audit, which is also known as financial audit and statutory audit, involves the examination of the truth and fairness of the financial statements of an entity by an external auditor who is independent of the organization. The need for an external audit primarily stems from the separation of ownership and control. External auditors are required to comply with the professional auditing standards issued by ICAI. So, a general question that arises to a student's mind while understanding this category of audit is, how can an external auditor be independent of the management when they in fact appoint them and also pay the audit fees? Well, there's a need of clarification here. External auditors are not appointed by the management. They are appointed by the shareholders of the company to check and validate the financial transactions undertaken by the management and also the accounts maintained by the management. Shareholders in the annual general meeting of the company appoints the auditors and also agrees to the remuneration that is payable. External auditors report to the shareholders. Thus, this is more like a tripartite arrangement where we have the shareholders who extends his money or invests his money into the business. Management uses that money to conduct the business. Shareholders appoints the auditor to perform the audit of the organization, and shareholders accepts his appointment from the management and conducts the audit on the financial statements. Management are also obliged to provide the auditors with the required data in order to enable the auditor to form an opinion on the financial statements. Moving forward to a second category, internal audit. Internal audit, also referred as operational audit, is a voluntary appraisal activity undertaken by the organization to provide assurance over the effectiveness of internal controls, risk management and governance to facilitate the achievement of the organization's objectives. Although there has been an amendment in the Companies Act which mandates internal audit for certain categories of the organization. So, unlike external audit, whose scope is restricted to the financial statements and the matters that concerns the financial statements, the scope of work of an internal audit is very broad and can encompass any matters which can affect the achievement of organization's objective. Internal audit could include audit of processes, spot checks, internal control testing, and so on. This brings us to a third category, tax audit. So, the Income Tax Act of 1961 has prescribed certain rules and regulations in its sections and annexures to facilitate the tax calculation of an entity. A tax audit is nothing but an examination of entity's tax return by the auditor to verify that the incomes were accurately stated and the deductions are accurately accounted for. Income Tax Act has also mandated tax audit on certain kind of organizations to be performed by a chartered accountant. For instance, a business who has a total sale turnover of 1 crore or a profession whose gross receipts are more than 50 lakhs are mandatorily required to get tax audit performed. This brings us to our last category, forensic audit. Forensic audit is like a gray area between audit and investigation. Having said that, we know forensic audit involves the use of auditing and investigation skills to situations that may involve legal implications. Forensic audit are generally in the nature of special assignment, but the management is of the opinion that there has been certain control lapse or misappropriation of funds. Finding of forensic audit could be used in the court of law as expert opinion on financial matters. Thus, if management is of the opinion that certain employee or group of employees have gone beyond their roles and responsibilities to tweak the financial statements, or there have been misappropriation of funds, or there have been a theft in an organization, they might call in for a forensic auditor to perform the audit. Forensic auditor will then use his auditing and investigation skills to probe into the matter and gather evidences. Conclusions of the forensic audit might be used in the court of law against that employee or the group of employees. Forensic audit may be required in the following instances: fraud investigation involving money laundering, tax evasion, and insider trading, determination of the profit share of the business in case of dispute, determination of claims of professional negligence relating to accountancy profession. I hope this must have helped the students in having a brief idea about the various types of audit. Any kinds of doubt, please leave them in the comment below and I will make sure that I revert. Thank you very much. Happy learning. Goodbye.